This is the Sales Bible Podcast, episode 335, 5-Minute Selling with Alex Goldfayn.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. And today we have a returning guest, Alex Goldfayn, because he's got a new book out titled 5-Minute Selling, the proven simple system that can double your sales even when you don't have time. In this episode, Alex is going to present a proven simple process that can double your sales even if you don't have the time for an elaborate new sales system. We talk about how during this pandemic, Alex's methods have even greater value because he speaks at length on the value of quickly following up in a disciplined manner. But before we get to the episode, I want to do a shout out to our sponsor, Sharetivity. It's a new Chrome extension that helps salespeople increase prospect engagement by providing an easy and fast way to personalizing their outreach on LinkedIn. Sharetivity, one-click personalization. So now, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome back, Alex. Are you ready to babble?
Yes, sir. I'm excited to talk to you again, Pat.
This is the second time that you've been on Sales Babble, Alex. The first time was, I went and looked it up over 2 years ago. It was May, and that was episode 209.
And what are we on now?
I think I just did 329 as the recording of this.
That's great. Congratulations. That's not a number most people get to.
No, most podcasts stop after 10 episodes. And here I am. This is like a bad habit I can't shake. Anyway,
you're good at this particular habit, Pat.
Alex, that's so kind of you. Thank you. Anyway, we talked about your book, Selling Boldly. It was about psychology, using psychology to boost your confidence and
that's right.
Motivate you to pick up the phone. But you got a new book out, right?
Yes, sir. It's called 5-Minute Selling, published by Wiley, like my last two. It's my fifth book. And 5-Minute Selling is based on this idea that if you can give 5 minutes in a day, combined 5 minutes of proactive communications to your customers and prospects, then you will grow your personal sales dramatically. 5 minutes every day.
I'm skeptical.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like very long.
Well, let's do this. How long does it take to follow up on a quote or a proposal?
Oh, it depends. A long time sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, it depends if it's complex, right? Could maybe take a half an hour. I don't know.
So I would say that you can send an email or a text message that says, Tom, where are you at in that quote? I was thinking about you. It's important to me to help you. Please let me know. If you follow up that way, that's a 5, 10, even 30-second effort, right? If you type really slow.
Yep.
How long does it take to tell somebody about another product or service that you can help them with? I call these the did you know question. Did you know I can also help you with X or Y or Z? You can do that in about 3 seconds.
That's right.
3 seconds. And if you tell somebody 10 times in a day about what other things you can help them with, now you're at a whopping 30 seconds that day. You still got 4.5 minutes left, Pat. If you make an outbound phone call, chances are you're going to leave a voicemail, right? The person we're calling likely isn't sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring. So you leave a message. Leaving a message takes 30 seconds. So every day we can rack up these kinds of actions, and we can do a lot of them. And if you do it consistently, systematically, over time, I've seen the sales grow for thousands of salespeople in my projects with my clients, doing exactly this kind of thing. So the book details the process that my clients go through. Something that's proven that has been done by thousands of people, and now it's all laid out in the book, 5 Minute Selling.
So this productive selling, how did you get on this kick? What motivated you to write the book around this idea?
So most people, not just salespeople, Pat, most people, our behaviors are driven by fear. And the salesperson generally is a particularly fearful person because, and I count myself in that, group because I sell for a living. I run a consulting practice. Salespeople, we get rejected all day, don't we? In baseball, if you fail 70% of the time, you go to the Hall of Fame. In sales, we fail more than that, right? So in our world, if we fail 80, 90% of the time, we're really damn good. And our lives are made up of hearing no over and over and over again. And sometimes every now and then somebody tells us yes. And that's how we make our living. So circling back to your question, how did I get to the productive sales kick? It is that fear, which is rampant in the sales profession, causes paralysis and inaction, which quickly turns into procrastination. And if we can simply take some action, right? Some action, some proactive action, chances are we're going to have a decent outcome, a good conversation. We'll get some confidence, we'll get some energy, we'll get some motivation, and we'll get some business every now and then. And that's going to motivate us to take more action. Now, look, the book is called 5 Minute Selling. Can you spend more time than 5 minutes? Of course you can. If it's good to you and you like it, do a half hour if you want. Do 15 minutes. But I'm telling you, 5's enough to get it going. 5's enough to grow sales. So that's kind of how I got there. Because all the salespeople, not all, most salespeople, we live reactively, not proactively. And this is a proactive system of selling more. Puts us in control.
What I thought was interesting about your book was, I was flipping through it. You actually wrote a little foreword post COVID-19.
Yeah.
And I thought it was extremely timely, and you probably felt compelled you had to write this. You said something in here, let me quote you here. It says, "You will find that compared to normal times, all the proactive selling techniques described in this book are even more important and effective in a world changed by pandemic."
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote the book in January, when the world was normal. I think the last full month the world was normal. I wrote it in a month. As I was in January, I think I had 18 different sessions in front of rooms of people, right? Clients, speeches, keynotes, workshops. And what I would do is I would wake up early at 4 or 5 in the morning and write for a couple hours. And then after my session, I would write for a couple more hours. And that was how I wrote the book. It was normal. And I wrote that forward in May, I think in the middle of May, when it was the last thing written for the book. And, everything in there, as you just read, everything in the book works even better now, sort of in pandemic and or post-pandemic, Pat. And the reason why is that almost everybody now is relatively silent. And your customers are generally more available to talk to than they've ever been in their lives.
True.
Because everybody's kind of either at home and able to be reached, or if they're in the office, there's not a lot of people with them in the office, right? Compared to before. So your customers, for everybody listening right now, your customers are not in meetings like they used to be, at least not as many as they used to be. They're not traveling like they used to. They're not running around. They're literally sitting at their desks by their phone. Call the phone. call the phone and talk to people. Pat, I can't tell you how many of my clients have told me that when they've reached out to their customers now in pandemic times, in these months that we've had here, these crazy months, and I probably, I don't know, I've heard a dozen different versions of this story. When my clients have reached out to their customer tells them, your competition must not care, you're the only one calling me. So not only are your customers more available than they've ever been during the pandemic here, it's more silent in their lives than it's ever been. Nobody's calling them. And if you do, you're going to be the only one. You'll have no competition. And this is a really important sentence I'm about to say here. If you help people through this time, help them get through this time, they're going to remember you forever. They will reward you with business forever. That's why proactive outreach is more important now and more effective now than it ever was before the pandemic.
I get the sense, the feeling I've got talking to people is that they're looking for a break. They appreciate actually that you called. In the past, before the pandemic, there's this whole notion of cold calling's dead, that we need to warm them up through, sending them an email or connect with them on LinkedIn and sending them an email and all that. How do you feel that fits in with now in the summer of 2020?
Emails and LinkedIn?
Yeah, should you do that first, or are you a proponent now of what you're saying is literally cold call them, literally call them up?
So, good question. Here's what I think. I think it's best probably to schedule the call before you pick up the phone to call. I'm fine with if you're very close with somebody, just, call them. But also, if you're very close to somebody, text them first and say, hey, Pat, listen, can you chat today or tomorrow? Because I'd like to connect and catch up with you. I've been thinking about you. And if this is somebody who you know, and who, they know your name, you know their name, I would say at least 50% of the time they're going to reply and say, yeah, sure, or I've got these options available, or I can't do today or tomorrow, but how about next week? So I've been actually keeping an average for myself here, because what I do, I'll tell you my process. Every single day, I send 5 texts or emails to set up phone calls every day. 5, I try to do it early so I get it done, because it's probably the most important thing I do all day sitting here at my desk, right? I'm sitting here like everybody else. So I send out 5. And my hit rate, my batting average here is about 2/3. It's about 65, 66% over time. And some of them are people I'm close to, but some of them are people everybody knows me. So just to be clear, none of these are cold outreaches. None of these are cold calls, right? All of us know hundreds of people that we can reach out to. And if we don't, if you're listening and you're new and you don't have that Rolodex, reach out to people who will recognize your company's name. That's what we want, right? If they don't know your name, then go to people who know the company's name. So 2/3 get back to me. And again, some are people that I've worked closely with, and some are people I've never worked with, and I haven't communicated with them in years, but 2/3 of those reach out to me back. So that's how I'd recommend it. I don't know that I would pick up the phone and just call, although I do that, every week I do that some. But scheduling them works better. It fills up your calendar. It makes you feel like you're busy. It makes you feel like you're being productive. You are actually being productive. So I'd go with the scheduling route.
I love it.
Hey, and one more thing, if I can plant the seed, because Pat, as I talk to you, I notice you're really good at silence. You're really good at letting the other person, which is me in this case, finish my thought and my sentence before you start talking again. And if it's okay with you, I want to answer your question, but I also want to plant the seed to talk about that, because that's a really, really, really important sales technique. Is that okay?
I'm not sure what you're saying. Which technique is that?
Silence.
Listening.
Silence is the technique. And so there's two kinds. Do you want to just talk about it now?
We're talking about, I'm going to let this run.
All right.
They're listening to this right now as we speak.
So because the first...
I totally believe in this.
Yeah.
People think, oh, how do you build rapport? How do you build rapport? You ask questions and you authentically listen. I don't need to help you. I know I should be letting you talk here, but
yeah,
I totally agree.
Yeah, you've just interrupted me twice, by the way. No, just kidding. Just kidding. That's funny. Well, you got so excited about it that you stopped being silent. See, I like that. That was good. So, okay, there's two kinds of silences. Number one, you ask the question, and then you let the other person think about the answer, and then you let them answer it. And I would say, like, let's say you ask for the business, right? And this is one of the chapters in the book, is asking for the business, right? Really simple stuff, right? My stuff is not complicated. So asking for the business is, Pat, when would you like this order? Or when can I expect the PO? Or how many do you need, right? Or I can get this to you on Tuesday or Thursday. Which do you prefer? And then let the other person answer. So if they're quiet, it's not because they're uncomfortable. They're thinking about the answer. And too much business is lost to nervous chatter by salespeople. So that's the first kind of silence. Ask the question, get out of the way. The second type of silence is what you're really good at, Pat. You're good at both, but I've noticed you do this over and over again in our conversation. When the other person finishes their part of the conversation, you're having your talk, you're going back and forth, and the other person finishes their sentence, Pat, you give it like a 2 count, like a 1001, 1002, and then you start. And then you go. Because in that silence, the other person might think of something else to say that you wouldn't even know to ask about. So don't jump in as soon as the other person is done. Let it breathe for a second, then go. 1001, 1002. See, there it was. You just did it.
That's how long I would wait. You're right. The thing is if you're trying to understand whether or not people would want to buy your stuff, is if you ask them about their lives, and if you get a good sense of what their challenges or desires are, they'll tell you everything you need to know.
Totally.
And you just kind of repeat it back. Alex, you said that you had this problem, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you said you had this other challenge, right? I think I can help you. Would you be interested in hearing how I might be able to do that?
And they'll be grateful for the fact that you actually listened and heard them.
Yeah.
They'll almost feel like they owe you one. It's fascinating.
Uh-huh.
I've had a lot of clients tell me that, this is telling a story, and they'll say this person keeps trying, and they're not giving up. And I feel like I want to help them and give them some business. I've heard this more than once. Same with what you just said. Talk to people, ask them how they are, ask them what they need help with, hear them, repeat it back to them, and they're going to think, oh my God, I don't have anybody else in my life that does this. You're going to be the only one. That's how rare it is. Pat, I say over and over again that selling more is quite easy. And we're in a profession where it's really easy to stand out from the crowd, in the sales profession. 90% of people live reactively. 90% of people operate in a fearful crouch, in a defensive crouch. And if we can bring some positivity, some enthusiasm, some optimism to our customers and our prospects, they're going to literally thank us with their money because it's so rare in their lives.
I know. That's the thing. That's the competitive advantage you have, is that people buy you before they buy your company or the product and services that your company has. If they believe in you, if they think you got your back, they'll do anything for you.
And I think it's easier than ever in this environment, this pandemic environment that we're in, to sell you the salesperson, right? To sell ourselves, because if you reach out to people proactively when nothing is wrong and say, Tom, how you doing? I was thinking about you. How's your family? And what are you working on these days that I can help you with? What you'll find is you're going to connect with people deeply. You're going to talk about family. You're going to have a really nice conversation, and they're going to feel good, and you're going to feel good. And that conversation is going to be the only one this person has today, like that. So they'll remember it.
Yeah.
And they'll give you business. Somebody asked, I think it was a LinkedIn topic, maybe about a week ago, and somebody was asking, do you think cold calling is dead now? Is cold calling dead? And I commented, and I rarely comment on LinkedIn, but I commented here, and I said, in this environment, in our pandemic world, there are no cold calls, I don't think. Because we automatically start with the pandemic in common, don't we?
It's what we talk about, isn't it?
Totally.
It's what we talk about. It's what you and I talked about when we first started.
That's right. And so you've got, instead of starting with somebody you don't know, and you and I knew each other, but if you're calling somebody for the first time, you're not starting at 0 with that person. Let's say it's out of 100. You're starting at 50. Because how's your family? How are the kids? What are you doing about school? Are you going anywhere this summer, right? How is it where you are? Are people wearing masks? Whatever you want to talk about. You have so much in common with people now, even if you've never talked to them. There are no cold calls.
Yeah. Yeah. I got 2 more questions before to wrap this up. First off, if you give us one piece of advice that people can go and take advantage of this week, what would that be?
The piece of advice would be the more that people hear from you, the more they're going to buy from you. So I would say, as you listen to this week, and you start, you get to a place where you can write down something. Write down the people that you'd like to reach out to this week, and do so. And email them or text them, so it's a low threat effort, email or text, to set up a phone call. The only good use of email, Pat, is to set up phone calls. or possibly to follow up on quotes or proposals. That's the only good use of email. Otherwise, email for sales is useless.
Don't
texting.
Quote.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't quote. Yeah, do that all over the voice.
That's right. Do it by voice. So my advice for the week is make a list of who you're going to call. And do this in 90 seconds. This shouldn't take 90 minutes, right? We just write down names, look at your email, look at your text messages. From your head, perhaps, give me the names of 5 to 10 people you want to reach out to this week. And then spend the week doing that. Then do that. Then reach out to them. And if you do that every single week, you will find yourself with a lot more business by the end of a year of doing this.
I love it. How can people find you, Alex?
So they can go to my website, which is goldfayn.com. GOLDF like Frank, AYN like Nancy. Goldfayn.com is my last name. The book is everywhere. The book is on sale August 24th. August 24th is the sale date. They just moved it back by a couple weeks because of printing delays due to the pandemic. So you can buy the book anywhere. On my website, goldfayn.com, you can download planners and trackers that you can use to do the kinds of proactive outreach that we've been talking about here. So you can find, and these are free, you can download the Proactive Call Planner, where you can write down in 8 different categories of customers or prospects of who you want to call this week. And then there is a tracker for you to write down what you actually did. And the tracker becomes a follow-up gold mine because it gives you a history, right? A list of what you did so that you can go back to it. So that's all there. And that's where to find me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. But the goodies are on my website.
Alex, it's been a ton of fun. It's been fun babbling.
It's always great to talk to. You're very good at this. I do a lot of these, and you're very good at this. So I really appreciate the opportunity, Pat. Thank you for having me on again. And it's great connecting with you.
Well, you're a really great guest. If you weren't, I wouldn't have had you back.
I'm grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you for that kindness.
All right. Take care, Alex.
You too, Pat. Thank you.
Sales starts with getting your prospect's attention. Given all the noise, you have to be different. You have to personalize your outreach. Unfortunately, it's time-consuming to go to Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube to find an icebreaker. It's a conundrum because personalized outreach converts significantly higher than canned emails. Picture the possibility that with one click, you could get a social footprint of your prospect, which would make personalized outreach faster. With Sharetivity, you instantly discover personal information regarding their interests, college, and social media posts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. With Sharetivity, you can make each outreach personalized, yet fully automated to fill your pipeline. Sharetivity is a Chrome extension. Search for it in the Chrome Web Store. It only takes 2 minutes to download, and soon you'll be skyrocketing your prospecting productivity today. Sharetivity. One-click personalization. Good reminder I got from this interview was that we need to all remember that fear and rejection are common in sales, and that 90% of the time you're going to fail. This is the thing. If you talk to people, you will get motivated, and you're going to create momentum. Reach out and make a call. To connect with Alex, you can find links to him in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com, and you can get access to his one-page sales planner. I got it right in my hand right now. It is pretty cool. This Thursday, we'll be hosting a conference call for Sales Babble listeners. Each week, we have new topics regarding lead generation, cold calling, closing, sales tool tips, and more. It's a conference call, so there's no need to dress up. It's not a boring Zoom call. You can show up dressed as you are and join the babble. It's a Sales Babble Telebabble at 4 o'clock Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, and 2 p.m. Pacific. Go to salesbabble.com/telebabble, and you can find the conference bridge or sign up for an email reminder. Hope to see you there. One of the best ways for people to hear about Sales Babble is from listener reviews. If you could go on your favorite podcast app and leave us a 5-star comment, I would really appreciate it, because word of mouth is how podcast spreads. And if you have a question or a comment about this episode or any episode, don't hesitate to reach out by clicking on the Babble Me button on the website. I'd love to hear what you think. That's all I got for today, folks. So until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.